Welcome back, everybody, to the Podecito podcast. I'm your host, Surreal469, and I want to thank you for coming along with me on this journey through our favorite show. I'm talking, of course, about the incomparable Las Vegas. Can you believe it? We are 6 episodes in. I know. Time has flown by. We are now on the super fun Semper Spy, which is obviously a takeoff on the term Semper Fi, which is Semper Fidelis, which is always faithful. We will get to Always Faithful, as that is the title of one of the other preeminent episodes of Las Vegas. But right now we're on Semper Spy. Semper Spy first aired November 3rd of 2003. The director was Guy Norman B. He directed a whole bunch of stuff. We got to get into the preliminaries first before we can get into the actual show, kids. Yes, we do. He directed a whole bunch of stuff. The latest thing he directed was a TV movie called El Asesino, Asesino, in 2019. We're going to say that I did that correctly. He also directed 12 Monkeys, which was a TV series, apparently, not just the movie. In 2016, he did an episode of that. He did an episode of The Mysteries of Laura, which was Deborah Messing's return to TV in 2015. An episode of iZombie. 11 episodes of Supernaturals, which is actually like a 100th of all their episodes. He did an episode of The Witches of East End, which was a TV series in 2014. He did 6 episodes of Arrow. From 2012 to 2014, he did 2 episodes of The Tomorrow People, which is in the Arrowverse. An episode of Southland, great show. An episode of Sarah Michelle Gellar in The Ringer in 2012. 11 episodes of Raisin Jr. in 2010. He did 10 episodes of Criminal Minds. He did some Terminator episodes, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, 2 of those. He did an episode of Knight Rider, that's right, GST show. Knight Rider in 2009. He did 6 episodes of Kyle XY. He did an episode of The Unit. He did an episode of The Evidence, which starred Rob Estes and Orlando Jones. Sounds like a good show. 3 episodes of Veronica Mars. Another Veronica Mars alum. He did 2 episodes of Wanted, which was a good show that starred Rashida Jones and Gary Cole. 2 episodes of True Calling, Dennis Hopper. In The Last Ride, which was a TV movie in 2004, he did 2 episodes of Las Vegas, this one, and Dex and Violence, which will be coming up shortly. He did 2 episodes of Threat Matrix. He did an episode of SVU, 2 episodes of the Ed O'Neill Dragnet, 2 episodes of Fastlane, look at that coming back. 13 episodes of Third Watch, which is where he probably came onto NBC's radar. 2 episodes of Alias, actually, I stand corrected, and he started his first directorial effort was for an episode of ER in 2001. This episode was written by GST, Matt Piken, and Michael Burns. We already know about them. We're going to get more into GST a little bit later, but we already know about them. Let's get started with the episode. This is a fun one. This is one of my favorites. As we get started, we see a beautiful shot of the CG Montecito with the ivory and green windows. We have the Asian high roller there, asking to be shown something good, and the girl who is almost toppling off of the bar stool.
Show me something good! Yeah!
Ed comes out and tells everybody that he's about to go on vacation. That is a big deal because, wouldn't you know it, Ed seemingly has never gone on vacation. Now, as does happen sometimes here on our favorite show, Las Vegas, sometimes the people that we see before the credits are vital to the episode. Sometimes they're red herrings. This time, they're complete red herrings. We're never going to see the high roller again. We're never going to see the blonde girl again. And Ed is watching over the surveillance and sees Danny on the cameras looking at a couple of chip thieves. We're never going to see them again either. They're red herrings. They're just there to show us, the audience, that Danny's got things under control. Even and especially while Ed is looking over his shoulder, and to further let us know that Ed is clearly not comfortable with quote-unquote going on vacation, but it is just that quote-unquote going on vacation. Clearly, something is up with Ed. Get our first real considerable whoosh of the episode as we whoosh through one of the monitors straight through to the credits. Always one of my favorite parts of the show. Depending on how you're watching it, you're either watching A Little Less Conversation from Elvis Presley or you're watching Let It Ride by Charlie Clouseau. You can't go wrong with either one. As we come back from the credits, we see Danny in Ed's office with his feet up, and he is smug once again. However, this episode is a lot more balanced than the Jokers and Fools episode where Danny was at his utterly worst. He is on the ball a lot more here. He's still smug, but he earns it in this episode a lot. Some of it, a lot. He earns most of it here in this episode. In this scene, we see Sam and Nessa, and they are off the bat basically just screwing with Danny at this point. And they're just kind of goofing off at work. Clearly, Danny's goofing off as well. But you could see the kind of devious wheels turning in their heads as they're sitting there. Sam starts us off by telling us about the Warners, which we will get to know a little bit later. Which Warners, we'll find out soon enough. But it's not long before Sam starts screwing with Danny behind the desk and pretending to get up to him and gets up close to him. And then Nessa starts pretending like she's into... They're clearly just goofing off and clearly just screwing with him until we hear the line.
I'm sorry to disappoint you ladies, and I use that term loosely, but it's time for the big dog to walk the floor.
Big dog.
It's not what I heard.
And in that moment, right at that moment, this is the first of many times where Ed's phone calls are quite fortuitous to the timing. They just happen to be as the girls are about to leave, and they can hear that Ed is already second-guessing Danny. And they don't hear it, but we hear that Ed is asking Danny, "Are you in my office?" We come right back down to the valet, and we see Mike bringing out our first guest star, who's just having just a bad day. Before we get into the bad day this guy is having, let's get into who that guest star is, shall we? That guest star is none other than Reno Wilson, who will be playing Frank Kolchak here. Reno Wilson is a guy you have seen any number of places. His first credited role was on The Cosby Show. He did 10 episodes as one of Theo's friends, Howard. He then went off to do an episode of Fresh Prince. He did Under One Roof, the James Earl Jones show I was talking about a couple episodes back. He starred with Hank Azaria and Elizabeth McGovern in If Not For You in 1995 as Bobby Beaumont for 7 episodes. He was a cop on Sybil for an episode. He was in Sergeant Bilko, the Steve Martin movie back in 96 as a radio DJ. He was in The Great White Hype, that Damon Wayans movie. He was in Good Behavior, the Sherman Helmsley show. He was in Chicago Hope for an episode. He was in Chicago Suns right after that for 2 episodes. He was in NYPD Blue for 2 episodes as 2 different people. He was in a Denzel Washington movie called Fallen. Mighty Joe Young as a poacher. He was in Sliders for an episode. He was in Good vs. Evil. He was in the movie White Boys with a Z. Do you remember that movie? I remember that movie. My philosophy teacher had us watch that in high school. That was interdasting. He was in The Hoop Life for 22 episodes as Owen Davies. Ironically enough, not Rowan Davies, but Owen Davies. He was in Touched by an Angel for an episode, The Greg Girardo Show, which was a TV movie, I'm guessing a pilot. He was on an episode of Wanda at Large. He did 2 episodes of Las Vegas. That's right, our favorite show. He did 2 episodes of it. One as Frank Kolchak, another in 2006 as Willie Hammond. That'll be interesting to track back and see the difference in those 2 characters in a couple of seasons. He did Lincoln Heights for an episode. He was in Transformers as the voice of Frenzy. I wonder if meeting and connecting with Josh Duhamel got him anywhere near that role. He did an episode of Raising the Bar in 2008. He did it with Mark Paul Gosselaar and Gloria Rubin. He did some video game work in Mad World in 2009. He was in a couple of other Transformers. Listen, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. He was Mudflap in 2009. Okay? He did an episode of Scrubs, another favorite show of mine. He did an episode of From Cape Town with Love as the video photographer. That was with Blair Underwood and Noah Tishby. He was in Final Fantasy. Again, look at that, with all the video game stuff that he did. He was in Transformers Age of Extinction, this time as the voice of Brains, where you may know him other than Las Vegas, more than anything else, is he did 127 episodes of a show called Mike and Molly. Remember that? That was Melissa McCarthy's show just before Bridesmaids. Like right around that time, like when Bridesmaids broke, she was on Mike and Molly. And he was on that show. I remember, so here's the thing about Reno Wilson. I gave that show a lot more time than I normally would have because Reno Wilson was on it. Reno Wilson is one of those actors for me, much like James LeJour, where I will give something more time than I normally would because I see him on it. And that's what happened with Mike and Molly. I gave it a lot more time. I didn't stick with it, but I gave it a lot more time than I normally would. You know where else you might know him? From the NBC show Good Girls. He was Stan Hill, Retta's husband on that show. He did 50 episodes of that. A couple of them with our very own James LeJour. That's right, James LeJour plays a detective on that show who, not to spoil anything, but might be working against the titular Good Girls. Yes, so we get that connection there, all right? Connections are all around. He then comes back. I know I told you that his second credit was on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He did 5 episodes of the drama reboot Bel-Air. And there's a bunch of other things that he's done, but the latest thing that I see him credited for doing is something called Chocolate with Sprinkles, which is a short. He plays Art in it, and that just came out this past year. He also did 8 episodes just before that of a mini-series based on Fatal Attraction with Joshua Jackson and Lizzie Kaplan. He did 8 episodes of that. I like Reno Wilson. Reno Wilson is a very affable, likable guy. He lights up a screen every time he's on it. He takes up just the right amount of space. He brings so much energy to any scene he's in. He lights it up. He's great in comedy. In Good Girls, he gets to do a lot of introspection. He gets to do a lot of subtle work. He gets to do a lot of emotional stuff. He's one of the reasons people don't talk about his contribution to Good Girls, but I really liked him in that show. He really did bring a sense of balance on the back end for the husbands on that show. One of the husbands was the guy who played Shaggy in the Scooby-Doo movies, and it was hard at first to start to take him seriously on that show, and I think partially the show didn't want to take him seriously, but Reno Wilson plays a very grounded guy in Stan on that show, and he brings a lot to that show to help balance that whole crazy world out. I love him on that show. I love him in this episode. Listen, I told you before. I told you last episode that, we could talk about who the VIP guest stars are, but for me, Reno Wilson probably is that VIP guest star. Now, I said that before I rewatched this episode. For the purposes of the show, I rewatched the episode a few times so I can get notes and, spot different things and music and all that other stuff. In watching this a few times, I thought Reno Wilson, Frank Kolchak, was going to take this for me as VIP guest star. As I'm recording this, there's the poll up about who the VIP guest stars are, and I'm going to tell you, the Warners who are going to come up on very shortly are kind of running away with this in what I thought was a surprise, until I rewatched this a few times. This VIP guest star thing might be a close race. Closer than I thought it was. However, Montecito Magic, I don't think, may not be as close as VIP guest star. Let's talk about that. So here we are. We see Frank getting out of the cab that Mike is helping him out of. He bumps his head, the poor guy. He steps on a piece of gum that we get a close-up shot of.
Son of a... Ah. There you go. 3 days has been like this. Worst streak of my life.
And then he drops his money clip in broad daylight, out in public. Do you know What kind of luck you have to be able to get your money back is amazing. But he just happens to be at the Montecito. And he just happens to be getting help from one of the staff members. Now, whether the staff member is really trying to help him or really feels any for Mike's just doing his job. Mike's the coolest guy in Vegas anyway. This is all general practice for Mike. He's not even necessarily trying. He's not necessarily pouring his heart out to this guy. Frank's not necessarily, I guess he is. He's telling him that he's got a bad streak and all this, but Mike's taking it in stride. He's not even really thinking too hard about it until Mike gives him the proverb as he gives him the money.
Fortune leaves always some door open. Come at a remedy. Don Quixote.
Yeah, from your mouth, my friend.
Off he goes to the casino. Now, we don't think much about that. You don't think much about that unless you've been watching Las Vegas for the last 5 episodes. And you should have been, because now you can see the signs that something's going to happen here. They wouldn't have brought Reno up like this. I keep calling him Reno because that's a more memorable name than Frank. But you wouldn't have brought Frank Kolchak up like this unless there was some meaning to it. I almost forgot, there's a music note here as we see Frank pulling up to the Montecito. As you're watching the original version, however you get the original version, the version that should have the NBC bug in the corner of the screen if you're watching it from the original version, which I don't know how you got it. I don't want to know how you got it, but you got it. Okay. The original version, you're listening to a song called Trevira Modern by Daka Regatta. Okay. Trevira, Trevira, Modern, by Dakkaragada. Wow, yes, I know. That's in the original version as well as the DVD. If you're watching on Peacock or Amazon, the song that plays is Lounging at Dave's by Adam Mills and Alan Hackshaw. Music rights, baby. You love to see it. But now, meanwhile, we go immediately to Sam, who's getting chewed out by some high rollers who are mad because there was a redhead in the casino floor, redheaded dealer on the casino floor, and they don't like redheaded dealers. Now, we're going to stop here for half a second because, let me tell you something, gamblers do have their superstitions. And not all of them get addressed because a lot of gamblers are not high rollers. They're usually just average people who don't get a chance to have their superstitions met to someone in a position to do something about them. Those superstitions can go any number of ways. The number of people that are sitting at a table, the time of day, what the dealer's wearing, what color their hair is, any kind of superstition about a dealer at all often happens. And you know what? That is entirely the gambler's prerogative to have those. It's only when you get to high roller status that you get to talk to your casino host and say, I don't want redheads. I don't even know if you could do that legally in today's age, but probably, like, you probably can if you worded, like, it's probably one of those things, I don't even know, you probably can. You probably can say you don't want a redheaded, maybe. I don't know. How much money would you have to blow at a table in 2024 for a casino host to accommodate your phobia of redheaded dealers? That's an interesting question that I don't have the answer to. Anyway, Sam seemingly does have the answer to it. She uses her feminine wiles. She calms the beast down when they say that they are going to go elsewhere. She brings one of their hands to her heart and promises him that nothing like that will ever happen again, and then she rolls her eyes. And this is one of the early instances where, on this show, we already teased in the opener that people believe that Sam goes the extra mile for some of her clients. They never really get into or say that. No one, but they hint at it a few times, and this is one of the few times that they really hint at it. But it's not. it's a weird thing that you could really kind of only do in 2003 and get away with her doing that. You can kind of only do that in 2003, get away with them talking about redheads the way they do. I hate to do this, but it's kind of a you had to be there thing. But we thoroughly prove later in this show that that's not Sam's strategy. Now, she uses her feminine wiles a lot, but always above board. This one's a little closer to the board, but always above board. Anyway, she is met by the Warners. She says that they got in early. Mr. Warner says, yeah, the pilot said we had tailwind. She believes that they're not supposed to get there at that moment. So that's where the initial confusion is. They aren't supposed to be there yet. So who are these people? They are the Warners, not the Warners she was expecting. They're better Warners. Let's let the dealer shuffle the deck for a second and we'll be right back. If you're ready to find your fitness family focused on being knowledgeable, being open-hearted, getting results, and having an elevated experience, then you're ready for KORE. That's Core Nutrition Fitness. The NASM certified personal trainers at Core cater to all fitness levels, ages, and body types. Whether it's the Gluteus Maximus and Queen Camp classes for the ladies, or the Minute Monday weight training for everyone. If you're in the Los Angeles area and ready to build better health and great friendships, the Core Fitness family is the place for you. Go to corenutritionfitness.com now for details. That's KORE nutritionfitness.com. These Warners are played by Pat Finn and Trisha O'Kelly. Pat Finn, who I'm going to go out on a limb here because he's replied to and liked a couple of tweets from the show. If you go to Twitter and you look up the Podecito, you'll also see that Pat Finn is kind of interacting with the show a little bit. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say friend of the show, Pat Finn. Yeah, we're going places, baby. Friend of the show, Pat Finn, plays Jim Warner. His first credit was in a 90s show called Jazz Freddy. Now, before the 90s show Jazz Freddy, he attended Second City. He was a rugby teammate of Chris Farley at Marquette University. And these days, when you don't see him on TV, he's the co-founder of Improv Ability, a company that brings the principles of improvisation into the business world. Pat Finn started on the show Jazz Freddy in the early 90s. He then moved on to the George Wendt Show for 8 episodes as Don Coleman. He did an episode of Caroline in the City. He did a TV movie with Nancy McKeon. Remember her? From Facts of Life. Joe from Facts of Life, that's right. He did the TV movie Boys and Girls with her in 1996. He was on 10 episodes of Murphy Brown as Phil's son, Phil Jr. He did some TV movies, including one with Henry Winkler, Freddie Prinze Jr., and others in detention, The Siege at Johnson High. In 1997, as Mr. Croft, he was Joe Mayo on Seinfeld. That's where a lot of you may know him from. He was also on that 70s show. He did The Bachelor with Chris O'Donnell and Renee Zellweger in 99. He was on King of Queens. He was Dr. Roger on Friends for 2 episodes. You may know him from that as well. He also did 8 episodes of Ed as Jim Frost. He was on Less Than Perfect for an episode. Great show. He was on 2 episodes of The Drew Carey Show as Mr. Delaney and George. Not long after he did this episode of Las Vegas, he was in Funky Monkey. He did a movie with Burt Reynolds and Angie Everhart, Cloud 9 in 2006. He was on an episode of The Bernie Mac Show. He also did a whole bunch of those buddy movies. You remember Air Bud? Well, Air Bud spawned off to a whole bunch of direct-to-video movies with the kids, like the Buddy instead of Air Bud. It was Air Buddies with the puppies and all that stuff. He did a few of those, including Space Buddies and all that stuff. He did and Spooky Buddies. Ask your kids about Spooky Buddies. Most recently, you probably recognize him from doing an episode of The Goldbergs or 23 episodes of The Middle. He was Bill Norwood on The Middle. The most recent credit that he has is for a movie called Unexpected in 2023. He plays Dr. Wells. That's friend of the show, Pat Finn, who plays Mr. Jim Warner. His wife on the show, Las Vegas, is played by Trisha O'Kelly. She plays Janet Warner. Trisha O'Kelly, you have seen in a whole bunch of stuff. She's usually playing the persnickety, snooty soccer mom who is way too serious about the rules, who you don't actually like. This is one of those bits of casting that shows how good the actress is in all those persnickety roles, because she's really good here in this role, and you actually do like her, right? Normally, when I've seen Trisha O'Kelly on stuff, I'm like, oh, I know exactly who she is. She is the persnickety mom who is going to ruin the fun of all the fun moms on this sitcom. The fun moms are going to try to make us laugh, and she's going to either be the mean mom or the persnickety mom or both. I know exactly who she is. That's not who she is here. She is the nicest woman on the planet, not named Mary Connell. Instead, she's named Janet Warner. Now, Trisha O'Kelly, aside from an actress, she did some writing. She wrote an episode of The New Adventures of Old Christine. Come back to that in a second. And she did 11 episodes of Bitter Party of Five. Okay, so she's got a few credits other than just acting. She started acting, at least her first acting credit, was in 1998 in George and Leo for an episode. She then went on to do two episodes, actually, of The Closer with future Las Vegas star Tom Selleck. Look at that! She also did The Love Boat, The New Wave, which I mentioned before. I think Las Vegas is sort of a Love Boat type show. She did The Hughley, she did The Pretender, two great shows right there. She did Rude Awakening for an episode in 91, which starred Sherilyn Fenn and Lynn Redgrave, as well as Richard Lewis. What a cast that already is. She did an episode of Jack and Jill. She did 5 episodes of The Young and the Restless as Jennifer Crawford. She did 2 episodes of Freaky Links in 2001. Trisha O'Kelly, I do declare. I think that meant the same thing in 2001 than it does in 2024, but I may be wrong about that. She did 8 episodes of Gilmore Girls. She did 2 episodes of Malcolm in the Middle as Mrs. Welsh. You might recognize her from that. She did 2 episodes of Back to You, which was the return to TV for Kelsey Grammer and Patricia Heaton back in 2008. She did Weather Girl in 2009, which was a movie. And you may really recognize her for her 88 episode she did in The New Adventures of Old Christine. She was Marley Earnhardt. New Adventures of Old Christine, amazingly hilarious show. She was one of the key factors that made it ridiculously funny. Every time I've gone back and rewatched that show, I have died laughing through most of it. She's a part of that. My hat's off to Trisha O'Kelly. She is, when I talk about this persnickety mom, the mean mom, that's this. She is in her element playing that role here in The New Adventures of Old Christine, which is what makes the juxtaposition going back and watching this and realizing, oh my gosh, that was her. Watching all these years in 2024, watching all these years going back to 2003 about, oh yeah, I have seen her and stuff. And she wasn't always that role. Sometimes she played the super sweet, nice person. She did 20 episodes of The Secret Life of the American Teenager as Camille Boykowicz. Say that one time fast. Really, you don't even need the 5. Guess what? She also did 3 episodes of Good Girls. I do declare. With our other VIP guest star contender, Reno Wilson. I know. Most recently, she did 7 episodes of a show called Station 19 as Kitty Dixon. That's Trisha O'Kelly. Trisha O'Kelly and Pat Finn the Warners, they steal the heart of Samantha. Did you know Samantha Jane Marquez had a heart? Where you're going to find out in this episode. They steal it from her right before our very eyes, and we watch them do it. They come in. They talk about the tailwinds and the flight and the time they spent, and you immediately see that the Warners are taken aback by what's going on. Pat Finn's eyes here do a lot of the acting as they get poured champagne and get the customary treatment. Vanessa Marcel's eyes do some of the acting too. She's looking like well, she is just taken aback by everything, but she's still going with the flow because that's her job. We immediately cut to our boy Frank. I'm going to try to refrain from calling him Reno. Our boy Frank. So Frank is hitting the tables, and Frank is doing what I usually do when I'm at the casino. I don't just hit any old table. I don't just sit any old where and put my money on any old thing and just start playing. No, that's not. You gotta feel the vibe, baby. You gotta get in groove. You gotta get in tune with what's going on around you. You gotta start feeling the groove, the wave of the luck. You gotta start seeing who's winning and who's not. Where the wave of where Lady Luck is walking on that floor of that casino. You gotta, before you just sit at any old blackjack table, you gotta see, is the position closest to the dealer open or not? If it's not open, who's driving that bus? Do they know what they're doing for everybody else that's behind them? Are they hitting on things they shouldn't hit on? Are they taking the dealer's bus card? What are they doing? What game are you playing? If you're going up to roulette, how is everybody losing? What's happening before you just sit at any old table and you play any old game? That's what Frank is doing. I see, this is one of the reasons I like Frank. Frank is me, baby. I like Frank. So Frank sits at the table. He gets a dealer that I would walk up to this dealer too. The dealer doesn't look like he necessarily enjoys taking your money. He's just playing it cool. He's sitting at the he's doing his job. He's not enjoying the process of taking your money. Frank kisses the dollar bill, says money plays. Everybody says money plays. Frank sits at the table. He gets an ace. And he gets the name of the game, blackjack. That's beautiful. 21. As soon as he sits down. Look at that. Also, blackjack pays 2-1 at this table. Boy, those were the days. Anyway, Frank is going to double up. He puts the money on top. Double it up. Let's go. Let it ride. And wouldn't you know it, another 21. Back to back. How often does that happen? And guess what? Keep it going. Let it ride, Frank. Let it ride. And he gets the name of the game of blackjack.
Nice little run.
Fortune leaves always some open door.
Starting to, wait a minute, put the pieces together and, okay, sure, let's go, let's keep playing, all right. Meanwhile, behind Frank, Danny, the acting king of the Montecitos, purveying his scene, and he sees some guys that are crowding a slot machine. One thing I notice is that they all seem to be wearing the same bright yellow thing, and as he looks at them, turns a corner, and we see our girl Mary, one of the other queens of the Montecito. And the look she gives him, the smile she gives him, just an instant brightness of her day. But Danny's got to be Danny. And Danny's got to continue to be the acting chief of security and knocks her paperwork down. And Mary doesn't know what's going on, but Danny's making a play because he sees he uses her to get a closer look at the monkey's paw. And all the guys start scattering in their bright yellow shirts. But here's the thing about that. When Danny goes over there, he doesn't grab them. He pushes them to help them scatter. He doesn't just grab one. He doesn't even just get one. He just pushes them to help them scatter. Why is he trying to allow them to scatter? Anyway, he chases them out. They all seem to have their motorcycles ready to go in the valet. Just super ready to go. And Danny chases them off. Now, those are some super bright yellow shirts. Super obvious. Those were never in style in the early 2000s. There was nothing, it's not like they looked like some kind of fashion trend. They don't even look like jerseys. They look like something you would wear. They don't look like something you would wear, actually. They're just bright yellow and black shirts for no other reason than to be painfully obvious and catch the attention of your eye. That should be the first clue that something's up, that this may not be what it seems, that it might just be a test. An obvious test. They seem like the Goombas of this test, you know what I mean? You know when you play Mario Brothers for the first time, and your first enemy is the Goomba. Your first enemy is almost always the Goomba in the first level. You know why? Because he's the easiest one to beat. But there he is. Danny chases off the Goombas, the bright yellow Goombas, and as soon as he does, he gets a call from Ed. Literally as soon as he does. It's almost as if Ed knew what was happening. It's just an omniscient timing. The second time this episode, Ed has had just the most omniscient timing when it comes to what's going on in this episode. Danny manages to get Ed off the phone, and we cut to Sam bringing the Warners into, not their suite, no, their villa. Sam goes through the whole treatment of introducing the Warners to their 24-hour-a-day on-call butlers. And right here, you get a glimpse of what kind of people these guys are when you see friend of the show, Jim Warner.
Hey, guys. I'm Jim. This is Janet. We're from Chicago.
By the way, great accent, Pat. Just superb. Tapping into that old Chicago-ness. But not the mean Chicago. You know what I mean? Like the good Chicago. And then we get to hear more of the, not saccharine, just really niceness. It's like they play it so well. They play it right on that line of, okay, these guys really are good and not annoyingly good. Like they just are actually good. When we hear Trisha O'Kelly, aka Mrs. Warner.
I'm also available 24 hours for anything you might require. Oh, well, we would never bother you at night. That would be rude.
Oh, it catches Sam off guard. Like you can see Sam's face light up in this episode like it hasn't lit up so far in any of the other episodes. And remember, Sam was the catalyst for Montecito Magic a couple episodes ago with our girl from a magic show. So we saw how soft she can be in these kinds of situations. She's already done it once. She's about to be the catalyst for a little bit more Montecito Magic. She already is at this point. But the softness on her face, like she's caught off guard with how genuine these people are, and not quite the same way she was caught off guard with how genuine Danny was in the pilot episode. She's genuinely caught completely off guard by these people because she's been hammered by so many just complete jerk whales in her recent adventures of being the host of the Montecito, that she is, and she's not even cynically caught off guard with it. She's clearly trying to keep her guard up, but that protection is going down the more nice and genuine these Warners are. Candidates for VIP guest stars indeed. And then the Warners do another thing that completely catches her off guard.
Sam? Thanks.
You're welcome.
How far genuinely thank her. And you can see the smile on her face, the warmth. She's just like, I can't. What is this? She's not even confused by it anymore. She's enveloped in it. So Danny sits back and he talks with one of the surveillance guys about the monkey's paw. Now, the guy Danny talks to about this monkey paw, I hadn't mentioned him before. He actually was in a previous episode. He is credited as surveillance team member, but he'll later be credited by his real name, Derek. The actor's name is Derek Anthony. He is a working actor. He started his credited career, well, his career at least on IMDb. He's uncredited here, but he did 15 episodes of Star Trek Voyager as an operations division officer. He did an episode of The Pretender. He was in 2 episodes of Angel as a security guard and a dying black man. It's Hollywood. He did 1 episode of The Drew Carey Show, one of my favorites. He did an episode of Ally McBeal, an episode of Frasier, an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer as an imposing demon, possibly after he died in Angel. He did 2 episodes of The Practice, another really good show. He did 3 episodes of The District. This time he got a name, Bill Segretti. He was in there for 3 episodes. He did an episode of the Ed O'Neill Dragnet again. Look at that. He did 3 episodes of Las Vegas. He did an episode of Numbers and Charmed and House and Standoff. I liked Standoff. I know Standoff really wasn't met with warm reception in 2007, but I liked it. I was fine with it. He did an episode of Law and Order LA. His latest credit, he did some Shameless stuff. His latest credit, or the show Shameless, maybe he did, I don't know. I'm not judging. He did an episode recently of The Baxters as Coach Heim in 2024. That was his super latest credit. So let's tip of the hat. Let's give some credit to Derek Anthony here, as he's going to get a bunch of lines. He's going to sit here and he's going to talk with Danny, and Danny's going to try to figure out what happened with the monkey's paw. Who uses a monkey's paw in that day and age? Which lets me think that they aren't in use anymore some 20 years later. And they only stuck them for $300. But they were pros, even though they were in bright yellow jumpsuits. And then right at that moment, they get a call that about 400 people's hotel keys aren't working. Wow, what a coincidence. Danny rushes down to fix the problem, and we run into yet another very hot girl who it's her obligation in the show, because they wrote Danny as the self-insert for the writers. It is her obligation again to come there and offer herself to the sexiest man in a city full of sexy men. The sexiest of all the sex symbols in Las Vegas. Let's talk about the actress. The actress's name is Paige Peterson. Paige Peterson has done a whole bunch of stuff. The first thing she did was Step by Step. She did Saved by the Bell, the new class. She did 13 episodes of Hang Time. We talked about Hang Time before. Where are all these Hang Time alums coming from? She did 13 episodes of Hang Time as Amy Wright. She was in Migo. Don't look that show up. Don't. If you can find don't even do that. She was in The Hot Chick. She was in she did an episode of The Mullets. Oh, The Mullets. Oh, UPN you had to be there for UPN. Anyway, she did 2 episodes of The Young and the Restless as Mindy. She did 4 episodes of Scrubs as surgical nurse, cute nurse. She also did Half and Half. She did 2 episodes of Half and Half as Dallas Temple, which I think was supposed to be a play on Paris Hilton, if I'm recalling correctly, and also the name. She did 2 episodes of The Playbook. She did Days of Our Lives. Her most recent credit was in a TV miniseries, Black Coffee, as both General Lee and Jenny. So there you go. Alongside another TV movie, Head in a Bag as General Lee, and in the Clueless TV movie as Miss Demeanor, all in 2018, as well as One Dead Donkey and a Bullet in 2018. She did a bunch of stuff in 2018. But before that, she was in Meet the Spartans in 2008. So a bit of a gap there. Paige, she's great in she does this role well. She does this role quite well. In fact, she does this role so well that there is a line read here that bears repeating. As Danny's getting a call from Ed, who's checking up on him again, and Annie's trying to pawn the girl off and say, could you give her a buffet comp? She comes up with the line,
You get her a buffet comp.
Is it all you can eat?
What is going on?
kids, I don't know how in the world they managed to get away with that line on network primetime television in 2003. They certainly can't get away with that on primetime network television in 2024. How they managed to do it were people that naive that they just didn't know what I knew what that meant. I know what that meant. You know what that means. And if you don't know what that means, do yourself and at least one other person a favor and go figure it out. Hats off, Paige. I don't know if that was an ad-lib or not. If it was an ad-lib, it should have gotten you a full-time job, for being perfectly honest. But
Why don't you take a little break?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm gonna stretch the legs, wash the face, refocus.
There you go.
Okay, I'm your amigo. Okay, I'm your amiga. Let's dance the night away until our bodies got fever.
You're listening to Bundeswing by 1989 TRE. If you like what you're hearing and you want to hear more, hear it again, or both, just go to Spotify and search 1989 TRE, all one word. That's 1989, the letters TRE.
More drinks, tequila, more memories needed. We're gonna live in the moment, como esta noche para siempre. My life is crazy, just like a movie scene. I've been so many places and seen beautiful things, but my mind is captured by this beautiful queen whose dances got me.
Danny walks away with a grin after that line that, if I'm perfectly honest with you, would probably be on my face for the rest of the week. He's talking with Ed as he's trying to get Ed off the phone about the stuff, as Ed keeps needling him. Are you all right? What's going on over there? Anyway, he meets Sam as he's walking away, and Sam is trying to get more security with the Warners because she believes that they're holding on to at least $1 million in cash as per the Warners' usual rate of play. I don't believe the Warners are holding on to that much cash. Not these Warners. These Warners that we've met, I believe, are maybe holding on to $1,000 or $2,000. Maybe. But are probably certainly not holding on to $1 million. In any event, Sam wants some security for them and is also needling Danny at the same time about why isn't there a security glitch when Big Ed is around? But that little bit of a tease sparks something in Danny as he's like, yeah, why isn't there a security glitch when Big Ed's around? But it actually starts to make him think. And as he's going through the security footage, we see the dates on the tapes that he's about to pull, which coincides with what I'm talking about, when these are supposed to air, etc., etc., etc. The date that Danny pulls is November 1st, 2003. This episode originally aired November 3rd, 2003. So it's in that week. It's right aligned, baby. So that's where us timeline nerds, like, it's a gift and a curse. But it's actually fitting in with the week that this airs. We're watching this seemingly, give or take, in real time. So Danny pulls the tape from the first, and he's onto it. He knows that it's not a software glitch. So he's watching the tapes, and he sees Big Ed go into one of the rooms at 3 in the morning. And he's trying to figure out, what are you doing there at 3 in the morning? Because Big Ed, at his position, he's not working at 3 a.m. most nights. You know what I mean? Unless there's a major catastrophe or emergency there. And then another miracle of the Montecito cameras in 2003, Danny is able to see the label on the CD that Ed is putting into the computer system that is a key card randomizer. And wow, do they even make those? Did they even make those a key card randomizer? Maybe, because you got all the key cards and stuff, and it's probably cheaper than printing out a whole bunch of different key cards, although key cards get lost all the time. So it's probably one of the components that hotels deal with on some level. I don't know if it's a CD-ROM, because I've never worked in a hotel, but it's probably, it's not unfeasible that they might have something like that if you think about it. Danny is on to Ed, and he knows that it's a test now. And he does a quick search of just some quick Hawaii info, what the weather is like in Hawaii right now, and then he calls Big Ed and asks Ed how he's doing. And Ed basically relays the information, the same information, because he's looking at the exact same website. Now, while we're on this scene, Ed, and we see that Ed is clearly still in Vegas as he's looking out the window of his motel room to the Vegas Strip. Now, as we're sitting here watching this, in this particular scene, we hear some music. What's the music that we hear? It's Queen's Aloha Oi, the up-tempo instrumental version by Nina. I'm so sorry, Nina. I'm going to destroy your last name here. I apologize. By Nina Keali Wahamana. Hope that was close. And the Hiram Olsen Group. In all versions that you're watching. Right after that, we see Mike pull up in an Escalade to the Desert Dreams Motel, which doesn't exist. I looked it up. It doesn't exist. We immediately cut back to the casino, and we see Sam looking around for the Warners. She doesn't see them, but she does see Nessa. Ah, what a beauty Nessa is in that suit jacket. Oh, with the back cut out of it. Oh, Nessa, only you could pull that off. And Sam starts asking Nessa about the Warners, and apparently they haven't played. They just walked around, looked at everything, and went back to the villa. And Sam gets a lesson in the itch from Nessa. And here's one of the things I noticed. I think this was supposed to be part of the Iceman's role on the show originally. Because Nessa is really good at giving these examples of her past experience in different hotels and casinos as a pit boss from all over the world at the young age that she is in. But I believe that's probably what the original Iceman, one of his roles was supposed to be, aside from just being Danny's godfather, was to spill his knowledge and his expertise from all his years in Vegas and other casinos to the younger cast members. They get away with it because Marsha Thomason is so good. But I think if I'm drawing some parallels and I'm just looking at patterns here, that was probably, I'm guessing, one of the roles the Iceman was supposed to fill. Anyway, we cut back to Mike in the motel room setting up the surveillance system for Mr. D to check in on Danny. And while he's doing that, we get to see the vision of loveliness. We get to see the angel, literally, that is Jillian DeLine. We get some Jillian in this episode, and she is long-suffering on this weekend. Remember how I talked about how Danny went overboard? Ed is overboard. Ed is overboard in this episode in his mission to test the kid. Jillian obviously is not used to these accommodations. She's Lysoling everything. She puts a towel on the bed, then Lysol on the towel before she lies down on the bed. She is not used to these accommodations. They are below Mrs. DeLine, and I understand that. She's grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle, and essentially what we're trying to get across here is that Ed has gone off the deep end, and we have accomplished that in a very short amount of time. One of the things they talk about in the motel room, Ed and Mike, is how Danny handled the monkey's paw situation. And you could hear, even in him being overboard, you could hear Ed being proud of Danny when he asked the question.
Hey, listen, how did the kid do with the key mess?
Oh, like a champ from what I hear.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's a nice moment. And it really feeds into the fun of the episode because you can see and hear the joy in Ed as his test is, not only is his test working, but the kid is passing his test. So he's starting to trust the kid more. We then cut to the Queens of the Montecito, sitting in Mystique before it opens, talking about our acting chief of security, Daniel McCoy. And here we learn a little bit. Delinda didn't know about Mary and Danny. Sam knew. Delinda didn't know. This interesting look she gives Mary. And Mary in this scene, as the girls are being catty and teasing about Danny and all this other stuff.
Care to make the acting chief of security a little less secure?
Oh, come on. Come on, Nessa. You don't have to ease up, Nessa. while they're teasing our boy Danny, and he doesn't know that they're teasing him, Mary, she's daydreaming about that boy. She is daydreaming about that boy. She is. She really is. They're teasing him. She's not. She is not. And they ask her if she's going to join in with the teasing. And the look, you can see the look in her eyes. She doesn't want to do it. It's the peer pressure. She's going to be in with the girls. She says yes, but she doesn't want to do it. She's like, she is. If she had a notebook, she'd be drawing hearts on it right now. She would be, I'm surprised she's not doodling on a cocktail napkin, Mrs. Mary McCoy. I am surprised she's not doing that. But she's not. She says that she's going to join in. Delinda's all in. Nessa's all in. Sam's all in. And so Mary at least says that she's all in. And they cheers to it. Mike comes back to the Montecito. Lucky for him, he runs into Frank. Mike forgot all about him. Frank proposes that Mike comes back with him to the casino and starts being his lucky charm. Mike is going to try to rebuff the offer. And even here, after that first scene, that's one thing between the two of them. In this scene, you can see immediately the chemistry between James LeJour and Reno Wilson here. They work well together in these scenes, and they work well together in this episode. Mike tries to reject the offer, but Frank comes back to him and says, how about that? And then how about this? Now, pausing it, our boy Frank just dropped $2,500 in young Michael Cannon's hands. Yeah, I think Mike's going to take the day off and be a lucky charm, isn't he? Wouldn't you? Even in today's $2,500, that's enough to cover me for the day. I don't know about you, that's enough to cover me. We whoosh down to the strip, and we see Ed coming into a local bar, and we see an older man yelling at a football game on TV. That older man, that character is named Charlie Blue. That actor's name is Pat Harrington Jr. Pat Harrington Jr. started his career on Kraft Theater on television. Kraft is in Kraft mac and cheese. In 1948, he did 3 episodes of that. This is how far back he goes. He goes far enough back onto television where the sponsors were right on the front of the show. It wasn't just The Bachelor brought to you by Ford. No, it was Kraft Theater. It was the Ford Theater Hour. It was the Plymouth Playhouse. It was the Motorola Television Hour. By the way, all those are credits of Pat Harrington's. It was the Elgin Hour. Then it morphed into the NBC Comedy Hour. But guess what? It then morphed again. So they were still happening. The Alcoa Hour. Alcoa is a company. The Alcoa Hour. He was on the Danny Thomas Show for 11 episodes as Pat Hannigan. Not Harrington, because, why not? Is his character, not him himself. He did a whole bunch of stuff. The Bing Crosby Show. I don't even know if you could ask your grandparents about some of these. Maybe you have an old head family member. My cousin, I know a lot of this stuff, and I think I'm a geek. My cousin loves anything in black and white, so she probably knows a lot of this stuff. He was in the original Alfred Hitchcock Presents show. He was in The Littlest Hobo. You don't even know about The Littlest Hobo. No, you don't. Don't pretend like you do. You don't. He was on The Lucy Show for an episode. He did 2 episodes of The Munsters. A lot of his credits came from the animated shorts that were connected to, but not quite, the Pink Panther, called Ape Suzette. He played the inspector and or Sergeant Dodo in most of those for a long number of years. Looks like it starts in 1966 and goes all the way through to the 70s, it looks like. His most notable credit that most people probably know him for was as Schneider in the original One Day at a Time. But he did a lot of stuff. His last credit was in 2012, reuniting with his One Day at a Time co-star Valerie Bertinelli in Hot in Cleveland, where he played Mr. Sheridan, not Schneider, Sheridan, in 2012. He passed away in 2016 at the young age of 86. Pat Harrington Jr. as Charlie Blue. He was in just this credit. It's a long list of credits. Empty Nest, Golden Girls, some of my favorite shows. He's got a resume. Here, Mr. Harrington is playing Charlie Blue. He's yelling at a TV screen, "Go baby go," which is or at least it was, a catchphrase used in horse racing most of the time, but he's watching professional football. Ed comes up right up behind him, and they meet like they're old friends. So we don't know the history between Charlie Blue and Ed, but we know that at some point they were on the same side. They worked together to some extent somehow. Probably knowing Ed and knowing what we know a little bit later about Charlie, right here in this scene, probably Ed recruited him for a short-term employment, but he kept, or some short-term employment. Maybe he was an informant of some kind or something like that. Charlie Blue is one of those guys who knows how to get things done for you for a price. And Ed and Charlie hug after Charlie is asked to get the old Omaha 19 going without the body count. And as they hug, Ed then comes back and says, "Hey, are you going to return this wallet to this guy?" And then Charlie says, "Oh, well, as soon as I find him." And Ed's like, "Oh, it's over there. Oh, that's the guy. And we can immediately tell Charlie's Charlie. Very quick scene, very good scene. Great use of Pat Harrington here, veteran actor of the TV screen. As Ed is coming out of the bar, his Hummer's getting towed. What's happening? His Hummer's getting towed. And right at that moment, Danny calls him. A little turnabout fair play here. Now, this is interesting to me that Ed doesn't immediately put the pieces together, but he doesn't. Or does he? Or doesn't he? I don't know that we're ever really sure until the end. In any event, we cut to the next scene, and Lucky Mike is standing behind our boy Frank, as Frank is just racking up the money. And behind them, the Warners are watching and cheering our boy Frank on. And behind them is our favorite casino host, Sam, who's trying to scratch their itch. She's trying to figure out what it is that they would like to do, including but not limited to going to see the private art collection of Mr. Wynn, or going to the forum shops and having Gucci opened up especially for the Warners. Sam almost scratches the itch when she brings up Tom Jones. Mrs. Warner is about to fall over for Tom Jones, and she looks at Mr. Warner, and he tells her don't crack through the eyes again, and she doesn't crack again through the eyes. And so this is how good these two are. They do a lot of communicating silently through their eyes. Just a quick look. They know immediately what the other is thinking. That also builds up for an audience member the belief in their marriage, right? You're building different pieces of this world that we're watching. It may seem insignificant to a lot of people, but all this stuff comes together to help with your immersion in this world. You can believe that these two are a married couple, and you can believe that these two are a happily married couple, and they work, and they communicate with each other without necessarily having to communicate with each other, and having a fun time just being around each other. And in Las Vegas, all the pretty lights and stuff, like they're going to talk about this at every PTA meeting from here till Kingdom Come. And they enjoy it, and they're taking it all in, and they're humble about it too. Like, there's a whole bunch of different things. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can feel in their performances. They're really good. They're really good, friend of the show, Pat Finn. You're really good in this. Trisha O'Kelly, you're really good in this role. Like I am and I'm rooting for the Warners. And then Mr. Warner says, well, there is one thing. They both communicate through their eyes the one thing that they do want from Sam. And we'll get to that in a second. But before we do that, commence Operation Desert Swarm, baby. Hold on a second. Let's get a new deck in here, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Rainy Days Don't Get Me Down by Anthony Njoku. If you like what you're hearing, want to hear it again, hear more, or both, just go to tinyurl.com/anjoku. That's tinyurl.com/anjoku. When someone talks about the fun of this episode, Semper Spy, this is one of the key elements of it. Everything is super silly and super funny, down to the military signs and maneuvers Charlie Blue is given to the other old guys as they start to cause havoc throughout the casino, kicking open the emergency doors and everything. And Danny comes into the surveillance room, and all of a sudden everything is starting to run amok. All these old people are just causing all kinds of havoc, leaving petroleum jelly on the armrest, breaking onto the cars that you're trying to give away, pulling one of the cocktail waitresses down on their laps, dropping ping pong balls onto the Russian roulette. That was my favorite. My personal favorite prank. Cause all the havoc you want to. But the honorable mention to Charlie Blue getting in the car. Cause all the havoc that you want to. And stealing the chip. But my personal favorite is screwing everything up by throwing your own roulette balls onto the roulette table and causing all kinds of havoc. That's great. That's terrific. That is terrific. But as all this havoc is happening, by the way, I did forget, actually. I got too caught up in the fun of Semper Spy. I almost forgot, but I didn't entirely forget. The music cue. Ballroom Blitz, baby. Ballroom Blitz. Everywhere you're watching this is going to be Ballroom Blitz. You know it, you love it. Ballroom Blitz. I don't need to say too much more about that. As we get back to the show, one of our biggest and favorite characters, Big Ed DeLine, is cracking up at what he's seeing on the screen. James Caan is crying from laughter watching what he's seeing on this. I don't know how good an actor, is he this good an actor, or are those genuine laughs? That is terrific. As he's watching this, Jillian is trying to get amorous with him, but it's not going to work because he is too enthralled with the chaos that he is so enthralled that he quotes,
This is too juvenile even for you.
Listen, I love the smell of Metamucil in the morning. This smells like victory.
Forget it.
That's a paraphrase from the famous Apocalypse Now line that was given by Robert Duvall's character in that movie. Robert Duvall was a co-star of James Caan in The Godfather. That's right. Robert Duvall was the consigliere of the Corleone family. But one thing about Ed, these shenanigans have to be the best shenanigans in the world, because he's got a piping hot, smoking Jillian DeLine who's ready to get down and dirty in a down and dirty motel with you. And you have the nerve, the gall, the temerity to brush her away, to see some old men rolling through your casino causing all kinds of havoc. Those are some great laughs. Those some great. If any part of this was the least believable part, that might be the most least believable part. Even if they are married, that may be the most least believable part to me. You're gonna brush off Jillian the line to see some chicanery and foolery in front of your face on a screen that you could probably see the tape of later. He's enthralled with it. There's nothing like a live event, and he's watching it live. He orchestrated it live, and to his credit, it is very funny. That really does help add to the charm of the episode. So we cut back to the casino. We see a bunch of chips in front of us, and we see a hand about to push them in, and we, in a few seconds, find out that is our boy Frank playing blackjack. Now, do you know how much money is in front of Frank right now? You ever wonder? Have you ever wondered? You ever had a notion? How much money had Frank won so far in this episode? I'm about to tell you. I did the math. I paused it and I did the math. Taking into account the stack of chips in front of him from top to bottom, as well as the rows of chips and the amounts on the chips. And then using that knowledge to calculate the semi-full stacks as well as what he pushes in. Not actually, we'll leave out what he pushes in. Frank, at this point, has accumulated $256,200. He's about to push in $25,000 on this hand. Which means, first off, he's at a super high limit table, but also that at this point in the show, Frank has accumulated $281,200 in winnings that we know of, that we can account for right here. Now, that's not counting what he tips Mike. You want to know how much that is in today's money? In 2024 money, Frank has in front of him $481,862.18. And later in this scene, after Mike gives him the good luck charm, he's going to tip Mike about $1,000. That's some Montecito magic, baby. That is Montecito magic. The villa's nice. The butlers and all that, that's nice. Cold hard cash of $281,000. In a day's money, $481,000. Ooh, that's some Montecito magic. That is some Montecito magic, baby. Anyway, Nessa comes over. Again, I love the fact that we're getting ourselves a bunch of Nessa in this episode. She comes over, she talks to our boy Mike and asks him what he's doing there, and figures out that Mike is the talisman or Lucky Rabbit's foot. And Nessa gives some sound advice.
Well, you know what they say. Never kick anything inanimate. Never fry bacon in the nude. And never, ever mess with a man on the street. Play on, player.
Including never. Now I'm thinking of frying bacon, which I can tell you, it wasn't bacon. It was taquitos, and I wasn't completely nude, but I did have my shirt off. And she's right. Don't ever fry anything with your shirt off. Just don't. To get a t-shirt. I'm lucky I was like a teenager. I don't care how lazy you are or just get a shirt. Believe me. Anyway, she also says never ever mess with a man on a streak. Play on, playa. Oh, that accent and then the wink. Oh my gosh, the ice queen is melted a little bit. Oh my gosh. We don't have time to linger on that though. Danny is in Ed's office and he's chomping on a cigar. In comes Delinda. And she's coming up with her end of the teasing deal that we saw in Mystique.
I was just to take care of some stuff.
I won't tell. If you're willing to cooperate while the cat's away. Besides, it's a huge turn on.
The cat's a freaking Siberian tiger.
Now, this song is, to my recollection, that's playing here underneath this, to my knowledge, is a production song. It seems to be running through all productions of this particular episode. However, the closest that I was able to find to this beat is a song called Pooze, Pouze, by Horus, Horus. Now, that's a hip-hop song. Well, they rap over the beat. It's the closest beat I could find to this. But it is actually fairly close. It's not the exact beat, but it's actually fairly close. So if you like the song that's playing underneath here, and you want a reasonable facsimile, find Pooze by Horus. Delinda is definitely messing with Danny's head in this scene as she starts to try to pull him onto the desk. And then Danny, you can really, now Danny is getting a bit off the beam. Now Danny's starting to let the pressure get to him a bit because he's starting to think that there's got to be a camera in this hotel or in this office that Ed set up for situations like this. Now, here's the thing. What in the past 5 episodes makes you think that Ed would want to watch and or orchestrate this kind of scene at all in it? Because what happens if Danny doesn't think about that? What happens if Danny goes through with it and Delinda goes through with it? And Ed is the one who set up the camera? No. For what? Because guess what? That might be a possibility. Ed doesn't want to see that. Ed, even if he didn't set it up, Ed doesn't want it. The possibility... Also, he's Ed. He doesn't need a camera in his office to do whatever he's gonna do. He's Big Ed DeLine. He can do whatever he wants. It's his office. Now, through all this, as Danny's straightening up the desk, he finds the card for the Desert Dreams Motel, which again doesn't actually exist. Danny somehow gets the owner or tricks the owner into getting Ed to vacate from his room with a story of a whale coming to town who's going to drop a whole bunch of quarters in his slot machine in the lobby. We get one of the great lines that I've repeated many times in real life.
Thanks for your charm.
It's a great line. I love that line. I use it often. If you hear me say thanks for your charm, thanks for your charm. Ed comes back into the room to try to find and get a reservation at the King Charles Motel in Las Vegas. The King Charles Motel does not exist in Las Vegas. There is a King Charles Motel in Ocean City, Maryland. The closest thing in Nevada is the St. Charles in Carson City. None of that matters anyway. There is no King Charles Motel in Las Vegas, or never was, according to what I could find. There is such a thing as music. And as you're watching this, in different incarnations, you're going to hear different music. You're going to hear, in the original version, A Taste of Honey by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass Band. That's in the original version. On the DVD version, you're going to hear some random production music. Don't know what it is. Don't know what it is. On the Peacock version, you're going to hear Swing Again by the Kooky Freeman Original Velvet Sound Band. That's Peacock and Amazon. So, 3 different versions over 4 different platforms. Have fun with your favorite. I like Taste of Honey by Herb Alpert. Swing Again isn't terrible. Swing Again isn't bad. Actually, I don't hate it. I don't hate Swing Again. I would recommend it for your Vegas playlist. In any event, as we go back to the scene, Jillian, the previous version of Delinda, is playing the military game with Ed, where they talk about Valley Forge and retreating to live to fight another day. Ed's not getting it, or at least he doesn't want to get that message. And in the meantime, Jillian has another message for our boy Ed.
And you think spending a winter in Valley Forge was cold?
You know, that's not fair.
Ed. Anyway, Frank and Mike are at the Bellicera. Frank, after ordering a triple Red Bull and vodka, and Mike really wanted to go home. He's had a long day. He can't take it anymore. Frank gives him this story. I can't do it justice. Reno?
I don't want to have to tell you this, but my wife, she died 2 years ago, right? I'm on disability, just okay in the bank, and the bank's gonna take my house. The week after she died.
Frank, that's the worst lie I've ever heard.
I'm desperate.
It's a fantastic bit of story and acting here, and the immediate turnaround is I'm desperate is great. It's just Reno Wilson is such a great actor, and in this scene, hold on, though, don't lose sight of what's happening in the scene. Don't lose sight, for the sake of the dialogue, of what's happening in the scene. Our boy, not Reno, Frank, has taken the gum that he stepped on as he got out of the car in Vegas off his shoe and put it underneath the bar at the Bellicera. Pay attention to that. Oh, see, the Montecito magic isn't always a one-way street. The Montecito magic might get lost. Something might happen with the Montecito magic. It may not. There are apparently rules to the Montecito magic, and Frank is about to break one of them. I don't know what that rule is, but he's about to break it right now as he takes the gum off of his shoe and puts it underneath the Bellicera. And just like that, he's starting to drop chips. See? He's starting to drop chips already, just like that. The luck has changed. This is really good acting by Reno. And Frank says he doesn't want it to end at the bar getting drunk. He wants it to end at the tables. And he's hyping Mike up to come back out there, baby. He's hyped. Yes, he is. He's hyping Mike up to come back out there, and they go ahead and drink. And I love it. And you could, again, one of the things I love about that scene is you could really, the chemistry between these two guys is just fantastic. It really is. It's tremendous. Cut to Danny coming into the hall and running into Mary, and Mary running him into the wall and just kissing him down.
Hey.
One of the security guys walks right past him and just pretends like he doesn't see nothing. Pretends like he doesn't see nothing. And listen, I don't blame him. He just looks briefly and just keeps walking, head down, just keeps walking. Meanwhile, Mary is, there she grabs the lapel. There's nobody around. Look, and she brushes her nose with his nose as she finishes the kiss. Come on. Team Dairy is thriving in this episode too, baby. Come on. And she just gives Danny this look. The same look that she had been hiding in Mystique. And Danny asks, please tell me you're not messing with me too. And she says no. And you could tell she's in love with that man. She has been thinking about doing that to Danny all day long. At least she thought about doing that to Danny earlier. What was it? The day before, when they met in the hall and Danny used her as a distraction for the monkey's ball. The look on her face when she saw Danny in that brief second. Nikki Cox, baby. Nikki Cox, I'm telling you. She's in love with that man. She's in love with she's been wanting to do that all day. She's been wanting to do that all week. She's in love with that man. She is not messing with him. She is in love with that boy. And Danny's thinking about it. Danny is thinking about it. We whoosh over to Lucky 7 Burger. And that's what the Warners wanted from Sam, is a burger from Lucky 7, which is basically In-N-Out, essentially. And you can tell it's In-N-Out because one of the requests from the Warners is they want their burgers gorilla style, and that is a take off on animal style that we here in LA and Vegas. At this point, Vegas, I think, had their first In-N-Out. That is one of the quote-unquote secret menu. It's not a secret anymore. It used to be a secret menu item. It was one of the secret menu items that you could get with In-N-Out. Like the In-N-Out menu isn't secret anymore. I used to get Animal Style. Animal Style is good. I like Animal Style. Animal Style, the burgers is good. The thing about In-N-Out is their fries aren't great unless they're piping hot, and they're usually never piping hot. They're usually never piping hot. In-N-Out is not worth the lines that people used to wait for them. This is a lot like In-N-Out is a lot more flavorful than I'll say Raising Cane's is. Raising Cane's, actually, I haven't seen a whole lot of lines out of Raising Cane's anymore. Certainly wasn't worth those lines. In-N-Out will occasionally still get lines. Not really worth it. But it's, it's good. It's good when you're in the mood for In-N-Out, but it ain't worth waiting in extraneously long lines for. In any event, we go back to the blackjack table, and you can, as you pause right here, you can see blackjack pays 3-2. It does not pay 3-2 anymore. It does not pay 3-2 anymore. Oh, what a shame. It pays like 6-5 now. Terrible. And y'all keep going. Anyway, we see here the dealer has an ace, looks underneath. He doesn't offer insurance, by the way. That's one goof. He doesn't offer insurance, but the dealer has blackjack, and nobody else at the table does, including our boy Frank. Everybody busts out on this blackjack table, including our boy Frank, and it looks like our boy Frank has about $800 on the table right now. Just a quick glance without doing any research. It looks like he just lost that much, and he's got a small stack in his hand, and he is shaking. He is not feeling it like he was feeling it before. Tuss the chips. Ask Mike to kiss him, and Mike gives him this look. I love James LeJour. Mike gives Frank this look, this instant look like,
maybe you should kiss him.
Up to 10% carry traces of the human papillomavirus. I ain't kissing no chips.
I love that line. Oh, these guys are good together. These guys, and this is one of the things that makes me talk about the talent of James LeJour. Yes, we're talking about the talent of Reno Wilson here because both of these guys are really good and they're playing off each other. But James LeJour just has seemingly instant chemistry with almost everybody he's on screen with. I don't know how he does it. He seemingly has chemistry with everybody he's on screen with. I know Reno Wilson, same thing. So when you get these two together, it's got to happen like this. There's no other way. It's got to be a great time to watch. And you are seeing the now seemingly fall of our unfortunate boy, now again unfortunate boy, Frank Kolchak.
Why don't you take a little break?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to stretch the legs, wash the face, refocus.
There you go.
I assume you're interested in large amounts of money.
It's Vegas, who isn't?
If you like the podcast and you want to help support it, you can send a Cash App, join our Patreon or Subscribe Star, or buy us a coffee. Just search The Podecito on all those platforms. And we cut right back to Lucky 7 Burger, and the Warners are eating and enjoying themselves, and Sam gets a call from Mary, and Sam is having such a good time. She giggles at just hearing Mary's voice.
This is Sam.
Sam, it's Mary.
Hi, Mary. What's up?
Part of that might be because the Warners might remind her a bit of Mary, and we all love Mary. But Sam is also just enjoying herself. She's probably eating something junk food-like for the first time in a while, at least probably for the day. She's enjoying herself with the Warners until Mary tells her the truth that the real Warners are there, and they're pissed. And again, this is part of why we like these Warners, right? Mrs. Warner, at least. Mr. Warner is engrossed in his Lucky 7 burger, but Mrs. Warner sees Sam and instantly connects with her emotionally and is like, what's wrong? She's more empathetic. Mr. Warner, friend of the show, is preoccupied with his burger, and we cut right back to the Montecito, and Sam has to grovel in front of the real Mr. Warner. Now, we get a little bit of information on the real Mr. Warner. We don't get much on Mrs. Warner because she doesn't speak in this episode. Mr. Warner, however, is played by Dougland Park. Dougland's first credit was in 1999, not too many years before this, in Bird Dog. He also did 2 episodes of The Practice as Zachary Kingman. He did Judging Amy, The District, The Guardian, Bruce Almighty. He was in Monk, Alias, The Ed O'Neill Dragnet, Scrubs, Numbers, Desperate Housewives for 3 episodes as the Doctor. He did 2 episodes of Huff as Dr. Berman. Remember Huff? That was one of the Hank Azaria shows. He did Without a Trace. He did It's Always Sunny in Philly. He did United States of Tara, another alum of that. Code Black in 2018. You remember Code Black? That was with Boris Kojo, Louis Guzman, Rob Lowe, and Marcia Gay Harden. That's an interesting cast. He was in Rizzoli and Isles in 2014. He was in Criminal Minds as the principal in 2014. He did The Fosters, 2 episodes of Pretty Little Liars, more Pretty Little Liars alum. The latest thing he did was playing God in East Bay in 2022. That's Mr. Warner, who is giving it to our Sam Marquez right here. And I gotta tell you, as much as we're not supposed to like Mr. Warner and Mrs. Warner here, they're not entirely wrong. Yes, they're seemingly awful people. And from the instant that you're supposed to kind of recognize that in your head as in the viewer, you kind of get that. Mr. Warner here is very good at throwing on a smug face and being above it all and vindictive towards Sam. However, he is quite inconvenienced as the guest of the hotel, having to wait for the room, etc., that was supposed to be his and whatnot. He's not, and with businesses, a lot of times you do have to try to hold them in some level of account for their service, regardless of if it's getting your villa booked before you can actually get there, not holding your reservation, or adding pickles when you told them no pickles. Whatever it is, there has to be some level of that. You don't have to be a dick about it. You could be nice about it. Or you can just be firm, but not necessarily a dick about it, because on the other end of that is a person who normally has some level of emotion and probably does feel bad about the mistake and knows the ramifications that can have on their career and or job, their standing, etc. So that oftentimes is enough. You don't necessarily need to go the extra mile to be a complete ass, but Mr. Warner is. He says,
I want something personal.
And so Sam gives him a heartfelt apology that Mr. Warner seems to semi-buy, at least. He says that his wife will take a look at the room, and if she likes it, they'll consider staying. Apparently, the wife likes it, because we'll see the Warners a bit later. In the meantime, we cut back to the surveillance room. Danny is talking to Derek about what's been going on recently. And really, he's cracking up. Because now Danny is playing the military game by himself. Derek has no idea what the hell he's doing. And Danny is checking one more time. Now, here's the thing, though. Danny in this hallucinatory state. Derek tells him, you need to go home and get some sleep. But in this state, Danny is sharp enough. He's crazy like a fox. Because he goes back to the loading dock and he sees that the security team that's picking up and or dropping off the, securing the diamonds that we heard about earlier in the episode at the very beginning, when Ed was about to go on his vacation for the new jewelry store in the casino, the name on their uniforms does not match the name on the truck. Danny spots it. But here's the problem. Danny thinks this is part of the test. And to be fair, given everything that's happened before, it's not wildly out of the question to think that. However, The difference is, when Ed was testing Danny, at least the first time, his crooks walked away with a couple $100. Not diamonds and jewels that are supposed to go into a jewelry store. That's a bit different. That's a bit out of the range of what Ed would do. Some minor damage with, not even really damage, cleaning up petroleum jelly off of a banister, getting an old guy out of a car, cleaning out the fake ping pong balls in the roulette table. It's not causing any damage like that. You know what I'm saying? So Danny figures out that these guys aren't working for Ed when they pull a gun on him and throw him in the back of a truck. Danny and the security guard get released from the truck, and Ed runs up and makes sure that they're okay just by staring at Danny, who says, "How was Hawaii?" And you could see the disappointment on Danny's face. We cut to Sam and Mary talking about the Warners as they walk through the casino, and Mary asks when Sam is going to pull the plug on the dream. Great question, Mary. Ed and Danny figures out the robbers' plan pretty quickly after Danny gets released from the truck, and the security guys are looking over the scene. They're looking at the back of the truck trying to figure out what happened, where these guys went. Danny and Ed can't figure out where these guys went. They didn't go back into the casino, so where could they possibly have gone? Well, Ed is thinking, walking around the area, and he sees a manhole cover that wasn't completely on the manhole. The sewer lid that wasn't completely on the top of the sewer. It was a bit ajar. Now, here's, again, that's quite convenient. Wouldn't you think that would be the thing that you do? You put it completely on top of the thing so that no one sees or thinks that you would have gone through the sewer. If your plan was to go through the sewer, wouldn't that have been the plan, is to make sure that it's back on? I don't know how secure it would need to be or whatever, but at least that it's on and flat on top, so that, because that's how sewer lids are supposed to go. One would think. Anyway, we do a whoosh through the sewer. We don't see any rats or turtles, which would have been cool, but we don't. Instead, we just whoosh out to the reservoir where the sewer leads to. And here's an interesting note. As Ed and Danny are sitting in Danny's car waiting for the crooks to come out the other end of the sewer, Ed's in the driver's seat. Did you ever notice that? Did you ever pick up on that? Ed's in the driver's seat. Danny's very protective of his car. Doesn't want Mike to touch it, almost. But Ed's driving. Of course he is. While they're sitting there waiting for the robbers, Danny and Ed start talking about Hawaii. And, why'd you come back, why'd you quote-unquote come back early, Ed? And Ed's like, sit there looking at the ocean. And then there was some monkeys fighting over coconuts in the trees there. And Danny tells Ed, there are no monkeys in Hawaii. He's right. Monkeys are not indigenous to Hawaii. They're not. At this point, I think they both know that they're both BSing the others. In any event, the robbers come out of the sewer, and Ed and Danny take care of the guys, catch them, and it's a good scene between the two guys, Danny and Ed, to win the day, find the jewels, defeat the bad guys, and we open up the case and we see the jewels are inside, and then we semi-whoosh from the jewels to ice in a bucket for a lobster to be served in Mystique. As that's happening, Sam is caught in between two Warners. Well, really four Warners. The real Warners and the good Warners. And the real Warners are berating staff members behind Sam, and the good Warners are so excited because Mrs. Warner won $200 in blackjack, which again leads me to believe that they didn't bring much more, if anywhere close to $1,000 in cash with them to Vegas. Maybe not even that much. But Mrs. Warner won $200 and they're so excited they had to track down Sam to tell Sam that she won $200. Meanwhile, Mr. Warner is berating a young waitress. By the way, hats off to that young waitress because she looks thoroughly berated by this guy. Very well done on her part as well. And the real Mr. Warner is putting on such a show that Sam can't help but tell the good Warners that no, you don't have to vacate your suite. You don't have to eat it. You're not. I know you wanted to go to the buffet to eat, but you're actually going to eat here. Sam is the Montecito magic is all over the place. This is why I have to ask: are the Warners a good case for the Montecito magic? They have gotten it. They have gotten above 5-star treatment from Sam. Didn't ask for it, didn't book it, all they did was be nice. All they did was be nice and say please and thank you. That's it. All they were was nice. That's super magical. That is super duper magical. Meanwhile, we cut again to Mike in the casino, and he runs into Frank. And Frank has a smile on his face now that he didn't have earlier. And they talk about how a person couldn't be a good luck charm. And they agree. And Frank figures out that Mike wasn't his good luck charm.
It was the gum.
The gum.
From my shoe, remember?
So Frank went back to the Bella Sarah and got the gum that he left underneath the bar. Oh, that's just terrific. And he put it in one of the cases that if you ever see the quarter things that have like the cheap fake rings in them or whatever, there would be the small version of that. It's so fantastic. And Mike is like,
and how's it going?
Are you kidding me? I'm hot. I'm on fire.
Frank, how'd it go, man? And Frank pulls out this wad of cash. He's hot. He's on fire. It's fantastic. It's that you get Montecito magic on top of Montecito magic, baby. Which Montecito magic you want to talk about? You want to talk about the villa with the butlers? Or you want to talk about Frank and the seemingly might be back up to over $250,000? Or is it both? Because that Montecito magic's all over the place in this episode. This episode is so fun. This episode is so fun. I love it. And then they hug and walk away, and here's the other reason why I like Reno Wilson. Even in that short goodbye between him and Mike, you could feel the genuineness in both of them in that moment. It's great. It's so good. It's so good. It's great. This is a fantastic Mike episode, man. I love Mike episodes. This is a fantastic Mike episode. This is a good episode. Mike passes by Sam and Mary again as Sam asks Mary about the Montecito jet that they're sending out for Tony Bennett. And they're sending it out to New York, and Sam wants to book it for Chicago. Just one last bit of Montecito magic. And by the way, the Warners told her, and Mystique will never forget this, Sam. They absolutely won't, because Sam's going to send them off in the Montecito jet to Chicago. Forget McLaren. You're going on a Montecito jet, baby. That's terrific. Then we start to get closer to a wrap-up here between Ed and Danny. And we all know that they're both BSing each other. Ed talks about how he ran into the guy that says that he knocked off the Montecito in Hawaii. Who'd have thunk it? And Danny talks about how, Ed, your Hummer's in the parking lot this whole time. Who'd have thunk it? Oh, yeah, Jillian must have forgot where she parked it. Oh, yeah, I guess that would happen sometimes. And it's kind of revealed that Ed is going to have to take Jillian on another vacation. We already kind of knew that. She was not happy with the Desert Dreams Motel. So he's going to have to make it up to her sooner rather than later. So as Ed is leaving and goes back up to his office, he sees his office decked out in Hawaiian motif. And depending on which version you're watching, you might hear different music. I know. One more time. If you're watching on the original version, I don't know how you would get the original version, but if you're watching on the original version, you're going to hear Tiny Bubbles by Don Ho playing. If you're watching on the DVD, you're going to hear some random production music. If you're watching on Peacock or Amazon, you're going to hear some different random production music. Tiny Bubbles is better. But you're going to hear one of those songs as you see all the palm tree balloons and the lawn chairs and stuff set up in Ed's office with the sand everywhere, and a sign says "Wish you were there," and a graphic of Danny towing away Ed's Hummer and the gloat. And here I've talked about camaraderie through this whole episode, but I haven't really touched on the camaraderie between Danny and Ed. And it does show in this episode a lot. With the pranks back and forth between the two of them, it's great. It's really good. And in this episode, Mike mentions that he's Danny's best friend, but there's a special camaraderie between these two guys that really plays well in this episode between Danny and Ed. And it even goes into it's almost all about the ribbing. Like, sure, the test, but it's really kind of all about the ribbing. And Danny getting the last laugh on Ed. Literally, getting the last laugh on Ed as the episode ends is fantastic. Between all those guys. It's between those two guys. It's great. It's great. And the respect of Ed, of the youngster got me. He got me. He got me. This is the good gloat, okay, and we're gonna move. And he played it well. He hit all the marks that he was supposed to hit. The truck thing, he went a little overboard with, but we'll forgive that because he handled everything else very well. And as somebody who called out Danny in an earlier episode, I will say I like Danny in this episode. He handles this stuff very well for the pressure that is put upon him. Now, mind you, the stuff with the girls, he might not handle entirely well. He's still a little bit too young to figure that out, and they were messing with him a lot. They were putting the confusion on Mr. McCoy. But the stuff with the casino, he's on the ball in this episode, and I like seeing Danny like that, on the ball, on target, on time with what is supposed to happen in terms of the crime or crimes, the mini stuff that's happening around the casino. I like seeing Danny in that light. I like that. That works for him, and that really works for him in this episode. Is this not one of your favorites? Semper Spy, is this not one of your favorites? It is top to bottom fun. It flew by maybe faster than, what was it, Jokers and Fools. Jokers and Fools flew by. This flew by maybe faster. It is one of the most fun episodes of Las Vegas, and we're only 6 episodes in. It is one of the, even if you don't pay attention to all the stuff like how much money Frank won and the dates and all that, just watching it, it is incredibly fun. It's a fun, my cheeks still hurt from smiling. I've been smiling through this whole episode talking to you. My cheeks hurt. Oh, they're so, ugh. But I'm happy to be in pain. These cheek muscles need the kind of smile that I'm getting from watching Semper Spy. It's a great episode, especially after the heaviness of the episode of Groundhog Summer. It is good to get just this super light episode in to kind of brighten up the whole tenor and mood of the show and bring the spirits back up of the fans and probably the cast as well. It's a good palate cleanser before we move on to the next episode. And speaking of the next episode, if you happen to have caught a original airing episode of Las Vegas like I have, don't ask me how I did it, but I did it. We also get a next week on Las Vegas. Let's hear that next week.
Next Monday, there's nothing hotter than an all-new Las Vegas.
Wayne Newton.
Where? From the high rollers to the casino's smartest con men, the city's sharpest eyes are watching their every move.
Whoa, man. Get the hell out of here.
But what no one knows is that the slickest con man in Vegas looks like this. America's discovered the hottest place to be. Las Vegas, NBC next Monday after Fear Factor.
That next week on Las Vegas is episode 7, Pros and Cons. That is a great episode too. It's not necessarily as fun. Actually, it is. I'm not going to lie, it is. And part of it is really great. Part of it is really actually fantastic. It's one of my, again, I keep saying it's one of my favorite episodes, and I keep meaning it's one of my favorite episodes. Every time I say that the next episode is one of my favorite episodes, it really is. Especially this early in the series. I am in love with these episodes of Las Vegas. Now, I'm smiling a lot through this episode and through this taping. I may not be smiling the entire time, but I'm gonna be smiling pretty hard, pretty early in this episode, because in the next episode, Pros and Cons is a great episode. It is guest starring the lovely Alana de la Garza. Oh, how hot was Alana de la Garza? They used her in the next week on Las Vegas. That's how hot she was. Alana de la Garza. What a treat. Not to mention, we get to see the first episode with another fan favorite recurring guest star. This guy. Once again, I'm thinking about the next VIP guest star, and I'm sitting here, I'm smiling super hard about the next person. And that's how good they wrote these guys. That's how good they wrote their guest stars. They're really good. They're really fantastic. But that's next week. This week, I need to rest the smile muscles. I need to, trust me, I need to rest the smile muscles because I've been smiling and laughing and giggling about Semper Spy all week long. I know you will too. If you can, do us all a favor here at the Podecito. Share the Podecito with the next person that you know who is also a fan of Las Vegas. They may not be as big a fan as you, but they may have remembered the show or whatever. If whatever it is, share the podcast with them. I'm sure they will enjoy the podcast at least as much as you do, and it might even make them want to go back and review the show along with you. That'd be a great experience. We all go back and rewatch these in real time, or however you want to watch them. That's great too. In any event, in the meantime, in between time, I'm your host, Surreal469. I'm very grateful that you have come along with me on this journey through Semper Spy, episode 6 of our favorite show, Las Vegas. Thank you for coming along with that journey with me. I appreciate you. And until next time, please, 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 remember, fortune leaves always some door open to come at a remedy. Don Quixote, Mike Cannon. Thanks for coming along. I'll see you next week, and until then, take care.